A very good morning to all of you. I'm very thankful to IITD and TSDSI for providing me the opportunity of sharing my knowledge with all of you. My name is Anjali Gupta and I'm a research scholar at IIT Delhi. My topic of research is media access protocols in Li-Fi. And the topic of my talk today is media access control protocols and solutions for visible light communication. In this talk, we initially need to know what a MAC layer is. So for that, we will be looking at the OSI model. The idea is that we want to send some data from host 1 to host 2 over the internet. So what are the processes that are required at host 1 and the intermediate nodes in the internet and at the host 2? So the OSI model presents the prototype of all those processes. OSI model says that we require 7 parallel processes at the host 1 and at the intermediate layers we require at most 3 to 4 processes, and at host 2 all the processes that are running at host 1 must be running at host 2. But today we use TCP IP model, so all the processes stays the same but the work of 3 or more processes is done by a single process, and we are now stuck with 4 layers. Application layer basically provides the interface to the user. Transport layer provides the checkpoints so that the data is not lost over the link. So internet layer provides the routing information. So over the internet there are many nodes. What is the hopping pattern that we must follow to reach at host 2? And last but not least is the network interface layer that we are interested in. So in the OSI model, the network interface layer was divided into 2 parts, data link and physical layer. The physical layer was just discussed by Professor Abhishek Dixit. We are not more interested in data link layer where all the media access control processes are happening. We will come to it why it is called interface layer. But before that, let us take up an example. Let us say host 1 wanted to send some data to host 2. Here we wanted to download some movie. So the instruction is I want to download a movie. So this instruction in host 1 goes to the transport layer. Transport layer adds some header so that it can be reliably reached to host 2, and the internet layer adds the destination address, that is the address of host 2, and the network interface layer adds 2 headers. One is physical layer header and another is MAC header. Our computer is connected to internet through some interface. Here's a wire interface is shown, let us say the Ethernet cable. So the node must have in an Ethernet cable interface the Ethernet jack. It receives the packet and optionally it can change the interface, like let us say it wanted to send the data on an optical fiber. So it inserts the headers, but different headers here, and node must have now the optic fiber interface, and similarly the process follows until the packet reaches the host. Here the reverse process happens and the headers are removed at every process, and finally we receive the information. So why do we need to know this? The focus is network interface layer. All the upper layers in a host stays the same. Whenever we change an interface or technology, we just change these 2 layers. We usually change these 2 layers. In our case for Li-Fi, we need to implement these 2 layers, and all the other layers are already present in the systems. We are presenting some examples where we are providing these 2 layers for different technologies. We all know that our laptops doesn't have SIM card slot. In case we are sitting in a train, there is no Wi-Fi, there is no Ethernet. How do we connect to the internet? We can use 4G dongle. So here what is happening, the 4G dongle has the interface layer and all other layers at the laptop stays the same. Similarly, we wanted to connect to gigabit Ethernet network, but let us say our laptop doesn't have Ethernet port. So what we do, we use an gigabit Ethernet network adapter. So this adapter contains the interface layer and we are now connected to the internet. Here, one thing that we must take care is physical layer is present in the adapter. So we can either implement MAC layer in the adapter, or MAC layer can be implemented in the system using some drivers. So whenever we connect this adapter, drivers get automatically downloaded. So there can be some functionality of the Mac that is implemented. Now we know that we need to implement PHY layer and MAC layer to develop a Li-Fi device which might look like a network interface card that can be directly integrated to the motherboard or a dongle-like device. However, we have yet not discussed the importance of medium access control. As the name itself suggests, it provides control over the medium, that is a channel, and how to access it. This is particularly pronounced when multiple users use same channel for sending their data. Let us consider the case of Li-Fi only. Here we have access point that works like Wi-Fi router. We also call it coordinator. It can send data from the light to user 1 and 2 in the downstream. The access point directly broadcasts the data, so user 1 and 2 receive the same data and they filter out whatever data is addressed to them. However, when user 1 or 2 wants to send the data to the access point, it can be possible that user 1 and 2 start sending data at the same time. So in that case, collision occurs. So what is collision? Let us say user 1 sends a waveform to the access point that looks like this. So it contains some data. And user 2 simultaneously sends a waveform that looks like this. Access point was expecting a signal that was between some range. We call it 0 to 3 volt range in the example. But the access point now receives data which has very high voltage and knows that there is some problem that happened in the upstream. So to avoid such problem of collision, medium access control layer provide the medium access control algorithms so that user 1 and 2 doesn't send data at the same time. Medium access control layer also provide functionalities that are specific to the physical layer. So there are different modulation schemes that we are using, how to assign different users the different channels and different powers, different time slots. All these things are handled by medium access control. Medium access controller also deal with the packet loss that happens at the physical layer by using retransmissions and error control functions. Medium access can also provide authentication and security. So medium access control layer, it gets the data from the upper layers, that is the networking layer, and adds some header over it to provide all these functionalities that are specific to PHY and send it on the PHY layer. So let us say we deployed Wi-Fi in an office setting, and this is the setting, but the users are not getting enough bandwidth, so we want to add some other access point. However, we cannot add another access point in such a scenario because it is already saturated. If we add some other access point, we will get a lot of interference and will face problems. So in such a case, what we can do is we can use infrastructure LEDs and make them work as Li-Fi access points. So in that case, we have many of the access points of the Li-Fi, and we can get very high bandwidth per user. So far everything looks good and we must be using Li-Fi. However, there are several challenges of a Li-Fi network. First one is field of view misalignment. Light is highly directional. So the device that we want to use to connect to the access point, it can have very different orientation as shown in this case. Let us say this user wanted to send the data to LED or access point. However, the received signal strengths are very low because of field of view misalignment. Second challenge is co-channel interference. All the access points are using same wavelengths. So in this case, when LED 1 or access point 1 sends the data in downstream and LED 2 sends the data in downstream, the data is collided or the user cannot guess what data was sent by what access point. So this need to be mitigated. Another problem is blockage or line of sight. Since light is highly directional, so the light can be blocked by the infrastructure inside the room or mobile users. So the signal strength might be very low, or there is no communication path and user cannot connect to the internet at all. So how to deal with such a problem? Moreover, we are using same medium for access. We do need multiple access control in such a scenario. Fourth problem is coverage area. Wi-Fi access points provide very small coverage area. Therefore, if a user is moving inside the network, it requires very frequent handovers. Handovers is fine, but having frequent handover is again a problem. Li-Fi also have problem of flickering, illumination and dimming support. So when we are using the LED access points, we need to take care that the room has sufficient illumination and the power is within the limits so that it doesn't interfere with normal human working. It also must be able to support light dimming. Moreover, LED access points must not cause flickering. We have already introduced media access controller and its importance. Now I will be discussing about media access controller of Wi-Fi and ZigBee. Why do we need to discuss that is because the current standards of Wi-Fi and VLC MAC are developed on the basis of these standards. So the idea of Wi-Fi was to provide wireless local area networks, and its first standard was introduced in 1997. IEEE 802.11 provided internet access to wireless users. However, in 2003, IEEE 802.15.4 was developed to provide low data rate and non-complex devices to form a personal area network. So initially the standard was developed, it didn't provide access to the internet. Therefore, various commercial standard bodies came together to develop upper layers for IEEE 802.15.4. Some examples are ZigBee Wireless HART, MyWi, etc. So the application of IEEE 802.11 Wi-Fi is providing internet access to highly mobile devices, and IEEE 802.15.4 it provided the connectivity between sensor nodes, semi-mobile devices. But nowadays, because of the era of Internet of Things in smart cities, the upper layers of IEEE 802.15.4 are developed to provide internet access using IPv6 protocol. For example, 6LoWPAN, ZigBee 3, etc. So IEEE 802.11 didn't focus much on the battery. However, the focus of IEEE 802.15.4 was to save energy such that the devices can last for several months or years. The network type that Wi-Fi supported was local area networks. However, IEEE 802.15.4 supported personal area networks. The file layer of Wi-Fi is quite complex, and complex modulation schemes are used to provide high data rate and high throughput. A few examples of complex modulation techniques are orthogonal frequency division multiple access, 1024 quadrature amplitude modulation, multiple input, multiple output manual. However, IEEE 802.15.4 use simple modulation techniques like pulse position modulation and on-off keying. Now, based on Wi-Fi and ZigBee, where do Li-Fi and VLC stand? Li-Fi standards are currently not ready. Li-Fi is standardized along with Wi-Fi in 802.11 BB standard. In this standard, the major focus is minimal changes to the Wi-Fi so that Li-Fi can be implemented in the same module as that of Wi-Fi. However, VLC, visible light communication, now optical wireless communication, was first standardized in 802.15.7 in 2011 and later revised in 2019. 802.15.7 is derived from IEEE 802.15.4 and hence it takes care of low battery of the devices. There are very few competitors to deploy Li-Fi or VLC networks, and whatever solution they are providing are their proprietary solutions. In Li-Fi, the major concern is that the mobile users in the indoor environments must be covered, so the highly mobile users must be handled by a Li-Fi or Wi-Fi heterogeneous network. However, VLC focuses on standalone VLC network. The 5-layer of Wi-Fi is expected to be complex. It might have several complex modulation techniques like orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, multiple input, multiple output, MIMO, or non-orthogonal multiple access. However, VLC still uses very simple modulation schemes like on-off keying and variable pulse precision modulation. In Li-Fi standard or 802.11 standard, the horizontal and vertical handovers will be considered. However, in VLC, a cell-based research mechanism is used to handle the mobility. Now, as we have already defined that Li-Fi and VLC is derived from Wi-Fi and ZigBee media access controllers. Therefore, media access control algorithms are similar to Wi-Fi and ZigBee. In the VLC standard or 802.15.7, simple CSMA CA is suggested. Let us see how this works. There is a VLC or LED access point, and these are the VLC users. So in simple CSMA CA, whenever a user or access point wants to send the data, it must go in back off, and whenever the channel is free, the data can be sent. Let us say channel is detected idle by this user. So there is no energy in the channel and source is ready to send the data. It sends the data, AP receives it. However, we must see that due to directionality, it may be possible that other users do not get the information that the channel is busy, and they can also send the data in the same time. Therefore, collision can happen. Now, after sending the data, source receives the reply from the access point and it can get the acknowledgement which is received by all the users. Now, the collision can happen in this part of the communication. So, how to deal with the problem? In practical scenarios, it is suggested by the researchers to use two different wavelengths in upstream and downstream. That is, in downstream, from LED end, the visible light can be used that serve the purpose of both illumination and communication. But in upstream, use IR, that is infrared light, so that the user does not face the problem of continuous blinking of the light. So therefore, two different wavelengths are used. In this case, a busy tone signal is suggested to deal with the problem of collision in CSMA CA in Li-Fi networks. Let us say source is again sensing the channel free and starts sending the data. So channel is detected idle and it sends the data, and at the same time AP access point sends a signal in the downstream which is a busy tone signal, so that other users does not send the data at the same time and hence collision can be avoided. So we can see that access point is receiving data and at the same time it is sending the busy tone. So the busy tone is extended till the time it receives the acknowledgement, and busy tone is received by everyone on the network, and after that time acknowledgement is sent. So when the acknowledgement is sent, other users get the signal that channel is still busy, so they do not send the data. Now we can still get the collision if two or more users sense the channel at the same time. However, the collision probability has vastly reduced by using busy tone signal. There is another improvement that has been suggested over CSMA with busy tone. It was suggested that, let us say, source sends the channel idle. So along with busy tone signal, what if we send the data? So if data is coming in downstream, all the users must know that the channel is still busy, so they do not send the data. In this case, the spectral efficiency of the system has been improved, and similarly, acknowledgement can be sent at the same time. There is another algorithm that is suggested for implementing media access control. In this algorithm, a centralized controller-based resource allocation scheme is proposed. This is a time division duplexing scheme. The time is divided in cycles. Each cycle consists of access procedure and data transmit procedure. During the access procedure, all the users contained the channel using CSMA in the access procedure to transmit their bandwidth requirement to the access point, and at the end of the access procedure, the access point sends the information that when each user can send the data in upstream. In this way, the slots are assigned to every user in the grant message so that they can send the data collision free. Moreover, access point can directly broadcast the data in downstream. In this way, we can achieve very high spectral efficiency and throughput. For the sake of completeness, we have also included a slide on MAC algorithms using channelization techniques. Channelization techniques depend upon the modulation schemes of the file layer. So there are different modulation schemes that can be used for channelization techniques, like optical orthogonal frequency division multiplexing can be used for multiple access in upstream. Similarly, optical code division multiple access can also be used to handle data of multiple users in upstream. Color shift keying and non-orthogonal multiple access is also discussed in the literature, which can also be used in the upstream for handling multiple users. However, there is no hardware implementation available, and it is still a question whether we can implement these channelization techniques or not in the Li-Fi networks. Next, we will be discussing about the handovers in Li-Fi network. The handover decision is usually taken on the basis of the received signal strength. So if the user is receiving less energy from the access point, or the access point is receiving less energy from the connected user, so the handover decision can take place, whether the user must be connected to the neighboring access point or not, or whether user must initiate whether it wants to connect to the access point or not. These handover procedures are also based on user trajectory prediction. So since, as we discussed, the cell size of the Li-Fi network is very small, it is very difficult to have the frequent handovers. So prediction based algorithms are suggested in standalone Li-Fi networks to handle the handover processes. Handover decisions are also taken on the basis of load balancing. So it can be possible that in a multiple access point scenario, most of the users are connected to one access point while the neighboring access points are sitting idle. So in that case, the load balancing schemes are used so that proper resources can be utilized. There are two types of handovers that are discussed in literature. One is horizontal handover. The handover happens from one Li-Fi access point to another Li-Fi access point, and in vertical handover, we use some heterogeneous networks like Li-Fi plus Wi-Fi, and the handover happens from a Li-Fi access point to a Wi-Fi access point. So in horizontal handovers, most of the prediction based algorithms are suggested to take the handover decision. For anticipation, we must know the exact location of the user or maybe the traffic profile. Arshad et al. Suggested to use topology aware handover skipping method. So we can understand handover skipping from these diagrams. Let us say the user 1 was traveling along this blue path. If we take the decision on the basis of received signal strength, the user need to go through so many handovers. However, if we use handover skipping, the signal power is compromised. So in this case, although we are receiving a high signal strength from this access point, the algorithms are used so that we can skip the handover, and also the user is having full coverage during its path. So this handover skipping was further explored on the basis of prediction and received signal strength. During initial research, it was realized that it is very difficult to work with a standalone VLC network. Therefore, the researchers introduced the concept of heterogeneous networks of using the Li-Fi along with Wi-Fi. In that, it was suggested to connect all the users that are facing a blockage, low data rate, or are mobile must be connected directly to the RF access point. So, however, there is still a problem. It may be possible that almost 50-60% of the users in a network are facing such problems. However, we should not be connecting all the users to the Wi-Fi, because in that case the Wi-Fi resources are not utilized properly. However, Wi-Fi is overburdened. So this problem was further taken up by many other researchers in the form of optimization problem. The optimization could be done on the basis of few parameters. Some researchers consider resource fairness and system utilization. The optimization problem was further explored whether we need a centralized controller or a distributed system to take the handover decisions, which one performs better and produces a highest system utilization. Furthermore, to achieve better system utilization, evolutionary game theory, fuzzy logic based or bandit theory based handover decision processes were also suggested. We implemented basic media access control layer on software as well as simple implementation on the hardware. We'll be discussing those two in the further slides. So for software implementation, we used Riverbed Modeler and Omnet++. The Riverbed software is a commercial simulation software for simulating networks. It has paid licenses. It has antenna module that we needed in our system, and the packet formats are pretty easy. We can describe a packet by drag and drop method. It also supports wireless channel by using these transmitter and receiver module. There are inbuilt traffic generators. Queuing modules are used for describing MAC layer. So here the MAC layer is further described using a state diagram. This model also provides integrated mobility. The static collection is again easy. It supports various type of networks like voice over IP, TCP, LTE, WLAN, IoT, IPv6 and many more, but it doesn't support Li-Fi and LC. Also, it has limited literature and support because it is a commercial software. We also implemented on Omnet++. Omnet++ is open source software. It is available freely. However, there is no antenna modeling and the implementation is very tricky. You need to code here everything. But Omnet provides an extensive graphical user interface. Graphical user interface of Omnet+ is much better than Riverbed Modeler, which was earlier known as Omnet. Also, Omnet++ has wide online community support. So whenever you are stuck, you can always look up online. But for our simulation model, we needed to create a medium just to provide the range of the access points and the users. We also reused the mobility module, which is already available in open source implementations. We also implemented media access controller on a very simple hardware. The hardware we considered is very minimalistic that can be reproduced in any research institute. Now I will be briefing a Li-Fi link. Let us consider our transmitter is connected to internet through a Ethernet cable. On the Ethernet cable, we will be getting Ethernet frames. The Ethernet frames, we must remove the PHY and MAC layer of the Ethernet and introduce our own PHY and MAC layer of the Li-Fi link and send it directly as a baseband signal. The baseband signal is optionally added with a DC bias signal in case the signal is bipolar, and then it is sent directly on the LED. Note that the signal here is a positive signal because we cannot send negative signal to LEDs. And optics or lens is optionally used at the transmitter end to shape the transmitter pattern. The signal is then sent in the form of intensity, which is received by a photodetector. Concentrator is required at the receiver side to concentrate the signal at the photodetector. The photodetector receives the signal in the form of intensity variations and convert the signal in the form of current. The current is then converted to voltage using trans-impedance amplifier, and other amplifier stages are used to amplify the signal, and the signal is then sent to digital signal processing, and the headers are again inserted to send the Ethernet frame back to the device. Light communication is considered secure because it doesn't pass through walls. It is also energy efficient as light can be used for both illumination and communication. It is also safe because there is no adverse effect of light on the humans. Also, light communication can be used in radio frequency sensitive environments like airplanes and hospitals. So this is the basic hardware front end that we designed. On the right side of the slide, we present the top view, bottom view of the chips that we designed and the final packaged product. In our Li-Fi transmitter front end, we used a very basic circuit. Here, our circuit can receive only unipolar NRZ signal. The signal is then given to buffer circuit to avoid loading effects. On the figure A, we can see the buffer stage, and the power supply is required to provide power supply to the buffer. The signal is then directly sent to the LED, which is displayed on the bottom view of the same chip, and the LED light then passes through the lens, which we can see in the Li-Fi transmitter front end. For Li-Fi receiver front end, we also used two stages. One is photo detection and then the amplification stage. The concentrator is required to focus the light on the photodetector, as we can see in the Li-Fi receiver front end. And just behind this lens, the photodetector lies that we can see in the bottom view. The signal is given to transimpedance amplifier and other amplification stages, which we can see on the top view. And the power supply is required to provide power to the amplifier. Now our front ends were ready. These are the front ends that we just described in the hardware side. The idea was how to connect them to the software. How can we pass the data through this front end? For that, we used Python environment as it is very easy to implement. And for the file layer, we used universal asynchronous transceiver circuit because it can work on lower data rates. And our hardware front end was providing output in few Mbps. So our Python application was running in two systems. One was acting as transmitter and another was acting as a receiver. So we had some data and we divided it into smaller pieces, and then we inserted headers. The header contained the information of the packet length and the destination. Also, we added data padding to mitigate the flicker, and this data is directly sent to USB to UART, and the UART signal was provided directly to the NRZ end of the buffer at the transmitter side. And at the receiver, opposite processing is done as that of the transmitter. The USB sends the data to the computer, and at the programming end, we understand the packets by using the headers and where padding is removed, and then we further remove the headers and we process the data to display in our application. In the next slide, we will be displaying how our link was working in the hardware setup.
This is a Li-Fi link setup. We are streaming video from transmitter to receiver over the visible light. This setup is working over a line of sight communication link, and therefore any obstruction in the communication path will corrupt the received data. For example, if we place an obstacle between the Li-Fi link, received data will be corrupted. If we remove the obstacle, link will start working again.
With this, we are concluding our talk. So in the talk, we discussed about state-of-the-art research activities ongoing in media access controller of the Li-Fi. Basically, we focused more on media access and handover processes. So for simulation, we have implemented media access control algorithms of IEEE 802.15.7 in OpenNet Modeler. We have also implemented a basic medium access control in OmNet++ for simulation purposes. We then presented a minimalistic hardware model for designing Li-Fi frontend. And then we also introduced how we can use the design frontend and how can we use it to perform communication between two computers using UART and Python programming. This simple model can be used to perform analysis of different type of medium access controllers or Wi-Fi networks. We close the talk with future research topics. As we discussed, the VLC, that is IEEE 802.15.7, is developed from 802.15.4. So we can really look how it can be integrated to IoT devices, and the upper layers are already developed for 802.15.4. How can we integrate our VLC standard with those layers? This can really be a research topic, and for that we also need to know whether VLC devices are really energy efficient so that they can perform the functions of sensor nodes and IoT functions. Also, Li-Fi is being standardized in comparison to Wi-Fi. So major MAC functions and even some of the physical functions stays the same to push the commercialization. In this process, we are missing few things. First and foremost thing, the Wi-Fi MAC may not be efficient for Li-Fi. So as we saw, CRMA-based, that was central controller based control techniques, can be used to maximize the throughput of a Li-Fi access point. So this can be further explored in the medium access controller. Also, coordinated multi-point communication or beamforming can further be explored for handover processing. So COMP was introduced in 4G to deal with the problem of interference. So this can similarly be used in Li-Fi networks, as we are using same frequencies at the neighboring access points. We also like to point out that most of the research that is going on is performed on the simulation, and most of the work is theoretical. So there is a lot of work that is required on the hardware side. What exactly can be used in the final model? Rigorous hardware implementation and research is required on that side. Also, some intelligent networking schemes are required so that we can use the network resources intelligently in a network. So it is also suggested to look in multi-point transmission control protocol so that we can avoid the vertical handovers. In this, using MPTCP, we can get parallel transmission from multiple technologies, and this is how we can converge the network. These are the references. Thank you.